there is still no sign of the 9-year-old Peter Shannon, who went missing on Saturday afternoon. This marks the latest in a series of disappearances dating back to 1994, when a group of students ventured into the woods near Burkittsville, never to be seen again.
20 years after the original Blair Witch project arrived in cinemas, it's now returned in game form. Me and Leon have been playing it, and we've got a few highlights and some thoughts on the game so far, Leon.
Yeah.
So what's happening at the beginning of this game?
So you are Ellis. You are an investigator who's looking for a missing boy, and you arrive sort of after the police. You sort of turn up and the dog's there, and he's like, "Oh, the police have started without us." And you head into the forest to begin looking for this missing child, obviously not knowing anything about the history of the forest and why that's a really bad idea.
Yeah, now we should say before we get too far into this footage, when we were playing it, it's sort of highlighted sections of the game.
Yeah, when they were sort of giving us a little pre-play presentation, they were talking about how they wanted to show the diversity of the game. So this demo is like really condensed. It's basically like 5 chunks showing off like one bit of the game. So sort of the beginning is like showing off the story, and then they sort of concentrate on the dog. There's a time rewinding mechanic with a videotape, and then the house, which is a sort of shape-shifting kind of warping building. So it's a really quick demo that just shows off each of the ideas. And while I liked it, the fact that it was such a tight demo worried me a little bit, because it felt like it could be a trailer with all the best bits in.
Yeah, we're not quite sure where these various sections take place in the game.
Yeah.
But it could be that they're all in the first couple of hours. It could be that this is beginning, middle, and somewhere near towards the end.
Yeah.
So just be careful if you're going to watch all of this footage, because you might get some of the best scares right now.
Come on, boy. Let's go find this kid.
What I did like about it is Blooper Team, who's behind it, did Layers of Fear, Observer, things like that. They are a psychological horror. That was the thing they were building on. So there are jump scares, and they're quite effective, but there were some more interesting ideas. So I mentioned the time rewinding mechanics. This is like Blair Witch is built on this idea of videotapes, like found videotapes. The original Blair Witch project was you're supposed to be watching the tapes of people that had died in the forest. Here you're finding more of these tapes, and by rewinding and playing through them, pausing them, you can change the world around you. So the example we saw, the very sort of tight example they showed off, was a door that's locked. You watch the tape, stop it when the door's open, and then the door's open in the real world. And it's like Blooper Team are very good at doing stuff where like kind of it affects you in the real world. So Ellis is a detective, and watching these tapes, you're a detective. You're trying to like match the tape up to the real world, or even work out what it is you could be affecting. So that's a really nice idea. I liked how much sort of they get out of it over the course of the game. I don't know.
Well, you're not alone while you're doing this. You have a lovely doggy friend who has multiple controls. You can pet him, which is most important.
Yes.
But he's also used for going investigating clues. You can send him off to find things. He's also used, which we can look at now, to fight I guess we're going to call them enemies.
Yes, there are some quite odd, very sort of monstery monsters, which is weird for Blair Witch, because I know the 2016 film had a much more, trees being smashed as a very obvious monster, but obviously the original Blair Witch project, the whole point was you didn't really see anything. Now we've got these weird like stick monsters. They're like a cross between the stick effigies and the Blair Witch as she appears in the 2016 film. And yeah, they skitter around, run around the trees, and you have this sort of torch combat where, unlike Alan Wake, where you have to sort of break the monsters down with the light and then kill them, the light just kind of scares them off. So Bullet will growl and like look in a certain direction, and you'll know there's a monster coming that way, and then you're sort of whipping the flashlight around trying to find one. And again, it while I'm not sort of sure about the monsters, it works really well because you are perfectly sort of recreating that kind of horror movie panic of like spinning around with the torch trying to like find what it is that's trying to kill you.
This is another section we saw here, which is a sort of marshy, foggy area, which was where they started using a lot of the environment to like scare you.
Yeah.
So this is where the trees started shaking, it gets really windy.
You're being chased by sort of weird lights. This is a sort of I guess like a tension sort of section really. I actually got killed by one of the falling trees.
Oh.
Which I didn't think you could do because it was such a sort of set piece kind of like, oh look, the trees are falling, and then one killed me.
And where the tension really mounts up is when you get inside these caves. And this is the bit that I found quite claustrophobic and scary. It's when your torch starts flickering a little bit, there's rubble everywhere.
Yeah.
It starts to get a bit more like, a bit more sort of Resident Evil-esque, where it's really close corridors and you're edging around corners and things.
Yeah, like you feel like maybe there's something just about to be in front of you. The thing it did look quite interestingly with the torch flickering is something that Blooper Team's really good at, which is so as the lights flickering on and off, you would be like, every time the light came back on, you'd be somewhere else, and there'd be something with you. There was a police chief at one point, and then there's boxes, you're in a house, and like, so they're really good with Layers of Fear of like, you know, go into a room, the door disappears, you turn around, you're in a corridor, you turn back, you're in a different room. That's like their thing. And it did a bit of that with the light flickering, and then it does it a lot more with the house, which is the sort of, I don't know if it's the end or not, but they said the house is actually about an hour-long section in the game.
Yeah, when we played it was what, like 5 minutes sort of thing?
You get to a point and it just stops and goes, thanks for playing.
Yeah, but it would feel weird, maybe, to have a Blair Witch game that didn't end in the house, given how iconic the house is in the film.
And it looks like exactly like the film. I was double checking, going back and looking at the 2016 film, and they've nailed the sort of that feel of this horrible sort of decrepit wooden cabin.
And as you say, the house is where their techniques really start to be used and come into their own, where you've got your torch doing one thing, but you've also got the video camera, which shows you different aspects of the environment as you look through the camcorder.
Yes, it shows blood. It's weird. It's like night vision, but not. So there'll be invisible writing on the wall that you can only see with the camera. There's a monster right at the end that you can you can sort of see in real life, but he shows up in the camera. So I'm guessing it's almost acting like a sort of sensor of some kind. So yeah, you follow a blood trail around that only shows up on the camera. There's messages on the wall. There's one point that says, "Don't look round. You're dead if you look round." And you look round, there's nothing there. But yeah, you follow the blood trail around the house, and you'll sort of, you keep coming back to this starting room. Like the geometry of the house doesn't make any sense. You go up some stairs, you go into a room, you go through a door, and you're back in the opening sort of lobby.
It's a bit PT feeling, that bit.
Yeah.
Like you're doing the same thing over and over again, but you have to find the key, and then the key's not there, but the door's open, and it's like, it's a whole load of looping sequences that eventually lead you to, as you say, the big scare at the end.
Which is a different, he says, like, this one's different. So the monsters you've met up until then, you scare with the torch. They sort of little sparkle and they run off. But this one, he says, is different. The light seems to scare it, but the light seems to make it angry. But what that means, I don't know. Like, if there's different monster types, I don't think that's not the Blair Witch, but there's obviously like a hierarchy of bad things.
So overall, it was a condensed demo, but good so far.
Yeah, I think it's like the ideas they all showed off were good, and the atmosphere is sort of quite nice. Nice is the wrong word, but it's got potential. It has to prove that all these ideas will work over the course of the game. Like, if they can make enough of the videotape mechanic, if they can make enough of Bullet, if what we've seen in the demo is kind of like the best example and that's it, then it could get boring. But I'm hopeful.
Great, well, excited to see more. That's our preview of Blair Witch. And for more on the game, keep it here on Games Radar.
Shit. There's no other way. I'll have to sneak past it. Somehow.